Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. All over the country this week, regular people are mobilizing against Donald Trump and his administration's overreach, both against his reckless, destructive efforts to detain law-abiding, peaceful neighbors in communities across the country, and also his decision, under dubious legal authority, to mobilize the National Guard and the Marines against peaceful demonstrators. Today, we are seeing folks taking the streets demonstrating against what is happening in this country, from Los Angeles to New York, El Paso to Raleigh. And this weekend, there will be many, many more protests, coast to coast, in cities big and small towns, to counter-program Trump's North Korean-style military parade he's throwing himself on his 79th birthday. Those protesters have a simple message: we have no king in America. The constitutional right to protest, enshrined in the First Amendment, exists for a reason. And I got to say, watching all this develop over the last few days, it feels odd to have to say this, but protests are good, actually. Protests against cruelty and tyranny and for our shared values are a good thing, and never more so than in the face of an authoritarian threat to our most cherished liberties.
Trump thinks he's some kind of superhero again, but even in the Marvel universe, they wouldn't write such a ridiculous character. The man is celebrating his 79th birthday with a military parade. Are you serious? It's unclear whether he got his inspiration from North Korea or whether he now receives daily briefings from Kim Jong-un. And the even funnier or tragic part is that he's sending the National Guard and Marines after protesting citizens. The guy who keeps talking about law and order is declaring war on peaceful protesters. You said you'd make America great again, but I guess you meant like England under George III. Who are these protesters? Mothers taking their children to school and back, retirees joining the march after work. And you're afraid of these people? Come on. He acts like he doesn't even know the First Amendment of the Constitution. Or worse, he knows it but doesn't care. Because in his mind, he's still the reality show president. But this time the ratings are low, and the people are waking up. If you've watched this far and still don't like it, please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
And to be clear, any debate about the optics of peaceful protest or whether or not demonstrators are just playing into Donald Trump's hands obfuscates the fact that people should be peacefully protesting against the ongoing attempt to end American democracy we've been witnessing. Each of these periods in history, there are almost without exception protesters among these groups that did stuff that I don't like, that a lot of people at the time didn't like, that went too far. There were endless debates about whether or not people were mobilizing the right kind of way. I mean, in 1961, for example, nearly 60% of Americans said that the lunch counter sit-ins and the Freedom Riders were hurting the integrationist cause. And a lot of times with these kinds of movements, it's only with hindsight we're able to see just how effective those protests really were. In this case, though, folks may already be waking up, and I think this might be the most important takeaway you have from tonight's program, although you should keep watching either way. Donald Trump is on the wrong side of history and underwater in the polls. A new Quinnipiac poll shows Donald Trump underwater by 11 points on immigration, down 16 points on deportations. Clear majorities oppose both outside the polls' margin of error. That's one poll. We'll see where everything shakes out. But in another victory for the right to protest today, a judge ruled that recent Columbia graduate student Mahmoud Khalil, who's currently being held in Louisiana, cannot be detained or deported over his protected free speech during campus protests against Israel's war on Gaza.
We need to say this clearly. Oh dear, protests look bad. We shouldn't give Trump any ammunition, and so on. These are delaying tactics. You're grown men. Please be serious. The man is literally trying to pull the plug on American democracy, and we're still talking about optics. Come on, history has always been like this. Even in the 1960s, more than half of the population said, these sit-ins are harmful. So what? Now those people are freedom fighters in history books. Someone walking on the street today will tell their grandchildren tomorrow, I was there. Trump? He'll probably show his grandchildren deep-fake videos deleted from TikTok because he has no connection to reality. And it's not just Trump, it's this mindset. A mindset that wants to silence people, criminalize opposition, and view freedoms as visual pollution. Fortunately, the people are slowly waking up. Polls are declining. Courts are resisting. We may be skating on thin ice, but the tires are starting to grip a bit now.
And thank you so much to our governors. And I want to say I apologize. I apologize for the abuse that you are facing in this committee that is supposed to be about waste, fraud, and abuse. And I also apologize for wasting your time, because this is nothing more than political theater. Now, again, this committee is supposed to be about waste, fraud, and abuse. We did not have to have this faux creation of Doge. The committee itself, that is our job. So what I want to talk about is something that the American people may want to know, which is economically, how is this impacting them? These failed immigration policies that are only put on so that they can have a show, because we have a reality show president who seemingly still believes that this is all about TV instead of real lives. So let me talk about something really quickly, because I want to clarify something, because I believe that all of you understand the importance of something like tourism. Are you aware, any of you, are you aware as to whether or not tourism in the United States is anticipated to decrease to the extent that we are estimated to lose $12.5 billion in international vendor spending in just the year 2025?
I can answer as the tourism capital of the country.
I assume you could.
Tourism's already down. It is down in the North Country, where the Canadians refuse to come over because of the hostility toward their country. It's happening in New York City. It's happening at our sporting events here, our theater. There's a ripple effect throughout our entire economy because of the change in attitude that our country, that once welcomed people from all over the world to visit and recreate and to live here, now feels like a very hostile place to them. It is going to have an economic impact on our bottom line, without a doubt.
This country once opened its doors with the words, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free." But now we've entered a mode of stay out. We're filming a fascist reboot of The Apprentice. Honestly, even these congressional sessions now resemble a reality show set. A representative is officially apologizing to the governors because the committee should no longer be investigating waste, fraud, and abuse, but rather the waste of time and brain cells. Seriously, what has this place become? On one hand, there are immigration policies affecting millions of lives, and on the other, a country where Trump acts like he's filming his own Netflix series. As for tourism, the sector that has been struggling to recover for years is now collapsing again because no one wants to visit a country where they're told, "Get out," instead of "Welcome." A loss of $12.5 billion by 2025. Billion. But no, we're still debating whether to build a wall or roll out tanks, because the man at the top is still chasing TV ratings. This country isn't a talk show. There are real people here.
So let's talk about it a little bit more. So I am supposed to have a number of FIFA games in Dallas, and I am fully anticipating that we are going to have a problem because I've been receiving phone calls that people don't feel safe coming here. And it's not the immigrants. It's this government that is making them feel unsafe. But let me also do this, because they love to cherry pick. They can find, any one person that has been killed. And if they've been killed by an immigrant, then God darn it, every single immigrant is going out and they are killers. And that is the problem. But they don't want to talk about white supremacy. I don't know how many hearings we going to have about the fact that there's been this one immigrant that killed this one person. And no, I'm not excusing any killings by them or white supremacists. But they haven't had these hearings. We didn't have a hearing on Buffalo and what happened there. We didn't have a hearing on El Paso and what happened there. We didn't have a hearing on Charleston and what happened there. So it's interesting that they pick and choose, because it seems like they love to pal around with the white supremacists, and so they don't want to talk about certain other things. But economically, I want to make sure that we're making this point again, because I know that Governor Pritzker, you were the beneficiary of a lot of things from the state of Texas. And a lot of people believe that Republicans are fiscally responsible, but instead they are actually fiscally irresponsible, because what he spent was a whopping $221 million transporting people from Texas to your state. Something tells me that he could have done something else with that $221 million. In addition to that, I know that there's been some conversations about what's going on in LA, and they want to say that it's riots because they didn't want people to keep talking about, say, the Epstein files or whatever other drama was popping off between the president and his little friend. So they wanted to change the conversation to immigration because they feel like, well, the polling is in our benefit. But let me tell you something. If they cared about making sure we were going to be fiscally responsible, they would tell the American people that it cost them $134 million to send the National Guard to LA for the quote-unquote riots that the governor didn't ask for, nor did the mayor of LA ask for, and they sent them over there, and they say that they care about our service members, yet they sent them and they were laying on the floor. They did not provide for food. So I don't know why we would believe that, number one, they want to fix this. They don't want to fix this, because the brokenness is a feature, not a flaw of the system, because it is beneficial to them when it comes to campaigning.
Look, let's stop this nonsense, shall we? While people are excited about the FIFA matches being held in Dallas, they say, we're afraid to come. Why? It's not because of immigrants. It's because of the toxic, paranoid atmosphere spread by the government. Because this country is trying to rebrand itself as anti-foreigner. And then they come out, find a crime committed by an immigrant, and suddenly all immigrants are criminals. Seriously? Then let's count the white supremacist attackers one by one. Buffalo, Charleston, El Paso. Why aren't they making headlines? Because it doesn't suit their agenda. They don't want to rock the boat with their white supremacist buddies. But it's not just hypocrisy. There's also economic madness at play here. The governor of Texas is spending $221 million on a human transportation show. $134 million for National Guard troops sent to L.A. And then they turn around and sell us fiscal discipline. Who are you trying to fool? This system isn't broken by accident. It's by design. They're selling fear because they have nothing else. They say, even Trump was given a fair trial. And that's true. Then grant the same right to others, brother. The Constitution isn't just for show. It applies to everyone. Everyone. If you want to put a stop to this hypocrisy, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Together we can make our voices heard louder.